You have driven past 100 of them. The long green stretch behind a low fence, the little flags, the man in the cart moving slowly across the grass. And if you thought about it at all, you thought the obvious thing. A golf course sells golf. Green fees, memberships, a quiet round on a Saturday morning. That is what it looks like. That is the one thing it almost never is, because here is the part that changes everything. Most golf courses lose money on the golf, the mowing, the watering, the staff, the clubhouse. Very often it does not pay for itself. And yet people keep buying these places, building them, holding on to them for 30 and 40 years at a stretch, which makes no sense at all until you understand what they are actually holding. They are not holding a golf course, they are holding the land underneath it. The golf is just the costume. It is a way to keep the grass green and the taxes low, while the owner waits for the land to become worth far more than any round of golf ever could. Once you see that, the whole business turns inside out, and it starts with a single idea that professional appraisers use every single day. They call it highest and best use. Highest and best use means this: the value of a piece of property is not set by what it is being used for right now. It is set by the most valuable thing you could legally do with it. Imagine a small old house sitting on a corner lot in the middle of a busy shopping district. As a house, it might be worth very little. But that same lot, if you could legally build a store or an office on it, might be worth 10 times as much. The appraiser does not value the house. The appraiser values the best legal future of the dirt. Now hold that idea against a golf course. A golf course is often 100 acres or more of flat, cleared, well-drained land, already connected to roads, water, and power, sitting right next to a neighborhood full of people who want more houses nearby. Ask yourself what the most valuable legal use of that land really is. In a lot of places, the answer is not golf. The answer is housing. And once you see that, the whole thing flips. The golf course stops being a business and becomes something else entirely. It becomes a placeholder. A way to keep the land productive and keep the grass green, while the owner waits for the day they can turn it into something worth far more. And this is not a hunch. In 2020, the Reason Foundation went through the financial statements of local governments across the country and found 221 of them running public golf courses. Of those, 155 lost money that year. Those courses lost about $61 million of taxpayer money combined. Now, a handful of other cities did turn a small profit, so when you add the winners and losers together, the net loss came to around $45 million in a single year. Either way you count it, the picture is the same. Running golf is mostly a money-losing proposition, even for the government, and some of the individual numbers are striking. In California alone, about 24 city-run courses lost roughly $20 million combined. But the clearest example comes from Lansing, Michigan, and a course called Groesbeck. When you divide the money the city poured in by the number of rounds people actually played, every time someone teed off, the taxpayers of Lansing were quietly chipping in about $24 to make that round happen, whether they had ever swung a club in their lives or not. Now here is the mechanism, and it is worth understanding because it is so clever. When a city owns the golf course, it does not pay itself property tax. The course is exempt. And when the course loses money, the city just covers the shortfall out of the general fund, the same pot that pays for roads and libraries and firefighters. So you end up with a strange arrangement, a course that serves a relatively small group of golfers, funded quietly by a much larger group of people who never use it. The golf is not really the product, the land is the asset, and the losses are just the cost of holding it. So that is the first lesson. The course is a placeholder for the land. The private clubs did something even stranger though, because they found a way to make the members fund the whole thing. Go back to the golf boom of the 1980s and 90s. Developers were building private clubs everywhere, and they came up with a beautiful piece of financial engineering. When you joined, they did not charge you a simple membership fee. Instead, they asked for a large refundable deposit. And these were not small. Real examples ran from tens of thousands of dollars up into the six figures. $90,000, $180,000. And here was the magic word that made people comfortable: refundable. You would get it all back, fully refundable, after 30 years or when you resigned and your membership was reissued to someone new. Now ask yourself why a developer would structure it that way. Why not just charge a fee? Two reasons, and both of them favored the developer enormously. First, a straightforward initiation fee counts as income, and income gets taxed the year you receive it. But a refundable deposit is not income. On the books, it is a liability, money you technically owe back someday. So the developer collected huge sums without the immediate tax hit. Second, and this is the real trick, that deposit was an interest-free loan. The developer got to spend your money today, building the clubhouse, cutting the fairways, paying the bills, and did not have to give it back for 30 years. You handed them a fortune, they handed you a promise, and they got to use your money for decades before repayment ever came due. For a while, that worked fine. New members kept joining, so there was always fresh money to pay back anyone leaving. But then golf softened. Fewer people wanted in, and suddenly the clubs had a problem because all those refunds were coming due and the money was not there. So they reached into the fine print. Many of these contracts said the refund only got paid on a schedule. 4 new members had to join to fund one refund, sometimes 5 to 1, or the refund only came when the club was completely full again, which, in a shrinking sport, might be never. So people waited and waited. There's a documented case of a member at the Grand Bay Club who resigned and then sat on the resuance list for 16 years, still waiting for the money they were promised. And here is the quietly cruel part. When a member passed away before the refund came, their estate often had no idea the money was even owed. The paperwork was 30 pages long, signed years earlier, and forgotten. That money simply evaporated into the club's balance sheet. Eventually, the lawsuits came, a wave of them, and many settled for a fraction of what was owed. But the lesson underneath is the one worth keeping. That word, refundable, was doing an enormous amount of work. What looked like a deposit you would get back was really free financing for the developer, paid by the members for years. Now let me take you west, because out there, the ground hides something worth even more than the dirt: water. In the eastern half of the country, water rights and land usually travel together. But in much of the West, in Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, and others, water is treated as its own separate piece of property. The system is called prior appropriation, and the rule is simple to say and brutal in practice: first in time, first in right. Whoever claimed the water first gets to use it first, and everyone else waits in line behind them. And because that right is its own property, it can be bought and sold completely apart from the land it sits on. Think about what that means for a golf course in a dry state. To keep 100 acres of grass alive in the desert, you need a tremendous amount of water, and the right to that water might be worth more than the entire golf operation. Which sets up a temptation. What if the owner simply sold the water and walked away? That is not a hypothetical. Look at the Eagle Trace Golf Club in Broomfield, Colorado. Houses line the fairways, backyard decks built to look out over the green and the little lakes. Then, the owner sold the water rights to an investment fund, sold the water, and left the course behind. And without water, that course is on track to dry up within roughly the next 15 months. The turf will brown, the trees will die, the lakes will empty, and hundreds of homeowners who bought a view of green fairways will be looking at a field of dead weeds instead. The neighbors asked the city to step in and buy the water back to save it. The city declined. And that is the cleanest illustration you will ever find of the whole idea. The course was never the real asset. The water was. When it became worth more sold than used, it was gone. So we have land underneath, and sometimes water underneath, both worth more than the game on top. Which brings us to the payoff, the moment the placeholder finally becomes what it was always meant to be: the rezoning. To a developer, a dying golf course is close to a perfect piece of land. It is large, it is already cleared and graded, and it sits right inside an existing neighborhood where housing is in demand. And here, I want to correct something you might assume. You might think building houses on a golf course would tank the value of the homes around it. The research says the opposite. When a firm called John Burns studied redeveloped courses, they found that homes next to them appreciated about 27% more than the average for their metro area once construction got going. A rundown empty course helps nobody. New homes lift the whole block, but turning that course into houses is genuinely hard, and the obstacle is almost never the construction. It is the law of the land itself. Some of these courses were deeded with a restrictive covenant, a legal promise written into the property that says the land must stay in golf use, sometimes in perpetuity, meaning forever. Others sit under conservation easements or open space zoning that flatly forbids houses. And on top of the legal barriers, there are the neighbors, organized and furious, who bought their homes for the view and will fight any change with everything they have. You can watch this play out in real places. In Plymouth, Minnesota, the Elm Creek Golf Course cleared every hurdle. The city council rezoned it, and 156 single-family homes rose where the fairways used to be. That is the end game completed, but compare that to Reston National in Virginia, where the owners have spent more than a decade trying to build 288 homes, leaning on a zoning approval that dates all the way back to 1966 and running straight into an organized wall of neighbors determined to keep the land exactly as it is. Same idea, two very different outcomes decided entirely by land use law and local politics. And that leads to the final twist, the one that makes this whole story circle back on itself. The very same legal tools that neighbors and cities use to protect open space, the covenant, the conservation easement, the open space zoning, those tools can lock the land into golf use permanently. And when that happens, the option to ever convert it disappears. The land can no longer become housing or anything else. And the moment that option is gone, the thing that made the land valuable in the first place vanishes with it. The placeholder becomes permanent. The bet is frozen. The owner is left holding a money-losing golf course with no exit. So the next time you drive past those quiet fairways, slow down for a second, because you can see the thing underneath now. The green grass and the little flags are the part they want you to look at. The value is always in the dirt they are standing on, and sometimes in the water running beneath it. Whether that land ever becomes anything more depends on a covenant written decades ago, a line on a zoning map, and how hard the neighbors are willing to fight. The golf was never the business. It was just the patient, well-mowed disguise for a bet on everything else.